Alright, so I think it's about time I make a video discussing the Jello issues around the 04 Lite, and I have a couple of builds here. These are not bind and flies you can buy anywhere, so before you rush down in the comments and ask me where you can buy these as you can't buy them anywhere, so I'll leave it at that. If you've been following along with my videos, you probably know where this came from. And you probably should watch the whole video before you start asking questions, because there's a lot of a backstory here that you're going to have to follow along in the videos and probably watch some of the previous videos to understand what's going on. So please watch those other videos down in the video description before asking questions. This top part here is from the Meteor 65 Pro 04. I did a review on that one. That is a bind and fly you can buy from Beta FPV, and that comes with this canopy. The camera has a mounting system here to do some vibration dampening, the 04 air unit there, and the Matrix 3-in-1 HD specifically made for the 04 air unit, and that's a 1S board, so you can run these 1S batteries. Now this bottom part here you've seen in a video from like 5 years ago. This is the HX100 SE 2.5-inch frame. This was previously an analog build, and I just took the analog parts out, the 1S flight controller and the camera VTX, just remove those, and I just used the motors on here. These are 1102 13,500 kVs. If you really want to see that video, let me know in the comments, and I'll send you a link to that one. It's from like 5 years ago. I just happen to have this one laying around, and it's kind of funny because Beta FPV, they're very consistent in how they design their parts, and the parts from 5 years ago had the exact same layout for the motor plugs, so that's why this fits in this frame perfectly. And I just created a little 3D printed battery holder for the lava lipo, and even the USB port fits perfectly in this frame. It's kind of amazing, but lots of Jello in this one here, and I thought that I could solve the Jello problems, but I noticed as I was going up from the smallest build, which was the Meteor 65, which was a really, basically a 35mm propeller. And then, as you know, I took this top part section out and took that out of the Meteor 65, and then I put it into the Air 65 or Air 75 frame, which is probably what this is going to go back into, to this frame here. And I thought this was the best setup out of all the ones I did. And then after I made that video, I moved the top part to the Meteor 75 Pro frame. Again, they make a bind and fly of this one as well. Same props, the 45mm propellers, 1102 motors. And as I progressed from the Meteor 65 to the Air 75 to the 75 Pro, I noticed that the Jello and the vibrations were getting worse. And now that I moved up from a 45mm propeller to a 2.5-inch propeller, wow, the vibrations are really bad now. As you can see here, I'm showing you some examples. Lots of Jello, and I was like, wow, what's going on here? Why is this so bad? Because when I flew this as an analog build, there was no Jello at all. In fact, these motors are practically brand new. I didn't have that many flights on them, no crashes. They're not the best motors in the world. Obviously, these 1102 motors, they've gone through a lot of reiterations over the years. They're definitely better now, 5 years later. But there's nothing really wrong with these motors or this frame. But there's lots of vibrations getting through to the canopy. And even though this is soft mounted, and if you go watch the older videos, the other videos, you'll see how this is arranged. And I would think, well, it should do a good job isolating those vibrations. And when I first built this canopy was actually right over the air unit right here. So this little nylon spacer here, standoff, was not there in the first time I built this. And so I was like, wow, there's a lot of Jello. I put the standoff in here. There's a metal screw that goes from here through all these parts into this nylon standoff. And they have a nylon screw. These are all M2 parts, by the way. And they go through the canopy, and I have two silicone O-rings, one on top, one on below here. I got two over here as well. So there's 3 points that are mounted, one over here in the back, and on this side. The front is not mounted. That could be why this is vibrating so much, but that didn't solve the problem either. Still lots of vibrations in Jello. and we really couldn't figure out why this is having so much vibrations. Maybe it's coming from the antenna, because the antenna, there's vibrations going to the frame, to the air unit, through the antenna. The antenna is touching here. The coaxial cable is not touching. So one of the reasons why I moved the canopy up is to get more vibration isolation away from the frame. That was one part of it. But then when it was lower, this coaxial cable was actually touching the top of the canopy and the back of the canopy. But as you can see now, it's not touching anything. So that's not the source of the vibrations either. I mean, it is touching obviously all the way down here where it's coming out of the 04 air unit board. And the only thing that's touching is the antenna right here, this part of the canopy. But I think it's because there's no mount point here in the front. And whenever you fly really aggressively, it seems like if this has too much movement, you get a lot of jello and vibrations. Also, I made a video where I found like a sort of a defect where this part of the canopy here was touching the silicone grommet, that little rubber band right there, and it's not really focusing. But now, as you can see, I can probably see it more better on the other side there. I actually used a Dremel and dremeled out that plastic so that the only part that's touching is the mount point right there, which is that back part of the mount. Again, watch the previous videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to take this apart again. I took it apart in the previous video, so go watch that. But yeah, this is not touching now, so that couldn't be the source of the vibrations either. So it is very nicely mounted and it's floating in here, and there should be no vibrations, but there's lots of vibrations. I really am not sure what's going on. All I know is that as I moved up in prop size, the vibrations were more noticeable, and especially as I flew more aggressively. So as I got more aggressive on the throttle, of course that'll cause more vibrations, and that will show up in the video. So if you're kind of wondering why you don't see a lot of people flying aggressively on these, it's probably because they're getting a lot of jello in the way they're mounted. Now, of course, there are more videos that'll come out. You'll probably see some more examples of this from other people pretty soon. Now, I did do another build just to see if the canopy is the main source of this issue versus the mount. So I'm using the same mount here. That's the exact same mount that's inside there. You can see the little rubber grommets there. Oh, and by the way, you can't buy this anywhere either, so don't ask me where you can buy it. But if you're curious, yes, I did get a 04 air unit in here, plus a flight controller this is very slammed down. This is 15 millimeters. So if you're wondering what the minimum space needed for putting a flight controller and an 04 air unit together like this, stacked, 15 millimeters seems to be at the lowest you can go, as far as I can tell. If you think you can do better, let me know in the comments. But yeah, this is a frame from Full Speed RC. I think it's discontinued. You can still buy it on Amazon. It's like $30. I don't recommend buying this frame. I put this camera in here specifically because this is a really bad frame. It has a lot of vibrations. It's one of the reasons why I never made a review on it. I did a lot of modifications to the frame here. Like I put a little shim in here so that these arms wouldn't rotate around. I put some foam in here to dampen the vibrations, and some foam over here as well. Lots of foam. And then one of the things I thought was the source of the vibrations was the cable, because the cable is obviously touching the frame here. It's running from the 04 air unit here, going through here, and it is touching the frame and the top plate here. So I added a bunch of foam here that's going wrapped around the cable here, and this actually has less vibrations than that, with nothing touching. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. The vibrations are still there, just because this is a really horrible build, horrible frame with a lot. I mean, it's super flexy, and just not a build you want to put anything on here. It's just I mainly put it in here, just stuck it in here just to see if I put it into a really like a frame that has a lot of really like vibrations and resonance in the frame itself, how much would there be? And for whatever reason, I'm getting less in this than that with the canopy. So yeah, I think Basically, when Beta FPV designed this canopy, they didn't have this sort of build in mind, and that's probably why they're not going to come out with this. If you're asking if they're going to make this, they're probably not going to. They're going to have to come up with a completely different canopy design for something where you're going to be flying more aggressively. If they want to get rid of the vibrations, because this is probably only meant for the Meteor 65 and 75 Pro, mainly for casual flying, indoor flying, slow flying, cinematic flying, not racing, not freestyle, not for this canopy. And if you are going to be mounting this camera like this in another build, it might work. I'm going to try and put this into like a regular type frame without a lot of vibrations and just mount it, because it is a 19 millimeter in terms of the width for mounting it. I will try and mount this into a different frame just to show you what it will look like, say, to replace this in an analog build, because a lot of older analog builds are 19 millimeters for a camera, and that should go in. And then we'll see if I can fly aggressively, and if it's actually the mount itself or if it's the canopy. Now that I have to figure out. There's more testing that needs to be done, but a lot of people are asking me why I'm not talking about the Jello. It's because I'm still doing the testing. I don't have the femto yet. The people are asking me about the Pavo femto. I don't have that one yet. It is the same camera mount, but a different canopy. And I know that I think there's been a couple of videos out there. Didn't seem like there was too many Jello problems on that particular design. So I think it has to do with this canopy, and probably have to stick to just those small Cinewhoops. I am going to stick this back onto the Air 75, because I can get that 4 to 4.5 minutes of flight time. I think that's good enough for that setup. But then I think I'm going to put this camera into like another build, like another maybe a 2.5 inch or a 3 inch build with a standard sort of analog camera, 19 millimeter mount, and see if I can get it to fly without a lot of Jello. Now, if you don't care about gyroflow or rock steady stabilization, you just want to use it as an FPV camera, then this is probably not a big deal. Just mount it, hard mount it to your frame, and just fly it. As far as I can tell, people haven't been having issues doing it that way, but it's when you want to do gyroflow and rock steady stabilization and you get the Jello, especially if you're flying in bright sunlight, then you'll see those problems. If you fly, like I flew this in like a cloudy day and I got no Jello, but on a sunny day I got lots of Jello. So it really depends on the lighting conditions on when the Jello comes out. So I'll have updates later. This is just sort of the first sort of, update as to what's going on with the Jello. A lot more testing needs to be done to figure out things. Going forward, what's going to be viable, I may have to go with some alternative mounts. I am starting to lose faith in this mount system. While it is nice that it's got 4 rubber bands there to sort of dampen vibrations, I'm not so sure it's doing a good job. I'm not confident in it right now. So leave it at that. Comments, questions, leave them down below. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.